Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Seize Your Business. Jim Waszak with Zeal Financial. My colleague Kevin is a little bit under the weather, so he won't be joining us today. But our guest today is Kim Stapleton. Hi, Kim. Thank you for being here. Kim's focus is doing business development work for professional service providers. So our topic today is growing your professional services business. So, Kim, why don't you just give me a little thumbnail of what you do and
Yes.
how you do it?
3 years ago, I did go out on my own, and I have now formed an LLC called The Network Effect. And I went out on my own because of family situations, having 3 children at that time. And it was not a strategy here, but serendipity happened, and I have 5 professional service firms in the city right now that I work with. And what I'm doing is consulting individuals from the associate level to partner level on who some of their clients are, how we could find other clients in that industry, who I may know, what I may know about the industry, events they could go to, and other contacts they have, how we could grow those, how we could look at new verticals for their business. So we talk about their focuses. We come up with individualized business plans for each of them.
Super, super. You know, it seems to me that a lot of people who are professional service providers, whether they're accountants, attorneys, dentists, whatever, they spend a lot of their education on learning their craft and very little on learning how to build a practice, how to do marketing.
Right.
Do you find that a lot in
Yes,
your...
they are very intelligent people. I enjoy sitting in meetings with them. They're experts in niche areas. You could sit down and talk about state and local tax, and they know every depth and detail in that, which I don't. But so it's always nice to bring another person to help groom that. Everyone's book of business is them, and it's portable. And it's very important. That's always looked at professional service firms. What the pressure is with professional service firms is billable hours. So they feel that weight on their shoulders, and I completely understand that because this is my 16th year doing this in professional service firms. So I'm not trying to add anything to their plate. These people don't need anything added to their plate. And quite honestly, they're very, very intelligent people. I'm only sharing what has worked for me in the past. And most of them have known me for many, many years before I started this consulting. We referred each other business back and forth.
I see.
And so that's how it came about and how it has grown. And it's kind of when you know someone and how they've done it, you've seen them work a room, you've seen them make introductions, and
So is there a particular, I mean, people love stories. Is there a particular success story you could share with somebody who was maybe, particularly shy or whatever? And go ahead.
I have multiple of them. One of them, it's not about shyness, though, when I heard that last word. But one of my stories is the managing partner of a significant law firm, has a business coach, sits with them monthly, has a list of prospects. These are ABC companies he wants to get into. And so I said, would you mind? I look at it from a different perspective, a different set of eyes. And there's nothing to lose in that, right? So a lateral partner had come in from another firm recently, but it's just down the hall. But no managing partner should take the time to sit down and look through all those LinkedIn people. So on his list of he wants to get into ABC company, I said, well, I do know someone who does tax work there. I could talk to them and get an introduction. Let me keep looking. That was the first of thought. And the second was when I found this partner, quick email to both of them. How well do you know the CEO here? Very well. They went to lunch next week with that CEO. So those are the kind of things. It's people run out of time in the day. It's not that I'm any more capable or competent. It's that you should pay me because my hourly rate is less than what theirs is.
Sure.
And I should do this for you to help you grow your
So you
business.
help them find ways of getting introduced to
it's
to
a lot of
people they
research.
wanna meet.
And we all do our research as we should. And you get to the first page of Google, you look those people up.
Yeah.
But when I get to the 5th page of Google and I find an article about this CEO from 5 years ago, it still teaches me so much. So I put it into the report and it says, this guy's from Russia. He's into his ancestry. He goes back every year to do genealogy. He's into these cars, and his boys are into soccer, and all these things ching before you go into that meeting.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of material prepared to create a discussion with the individual.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
And I know I did it for myself. I started doing it, before an 8 a.m. meeting the next day. I'd do it at home that night after 9 o'clock. And all of a sudden, you're 2 hours into it because you have to find it interesting. And I definitely have a passion for connecting the dots. How these people can get to know each other. We're going to figure it out by looking at their alma maters, their former employers, their philanthropic interests.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. Well, what would you say to somebody who's maybe just starting out in their own firm? Maybe they don't have a lot of resources. They maybe would love your help, but maybe aren't ready to invest that kind of money. Are there some simple tricks of the trade you could maybe share with them?
So, and this is all the things that I'm consulting on are the same things I did in my own business when I was working in a corporate America setting. And when you go to meetings, take notes. I'm a copious note taker, and I have this book that I carry with me all the time, and it has every meeting I've sat in recently. I have last year's book, this year's book, and I flip back to those and type them out into your contacts. Link with them on LinkedIn. I'm a huge advocate of LinkedIn. I teach on that all the time.
Okay.
I go into professional service firms, and they may only hire me for a few hours of training on business development and LinkedIn to a broad group.
Sure.
I'm doing that next week to an accounting firm right out here in the suburbs.
Now, when you say you go to a meeting, you mean like a networking meeting typically?
It could
or
be
any kind of meeting?
Yeah, anytime you've gotten someone's business card, that business card will become outdated as everyone changes careers every 3 to 4 years nowadays.
Sure.
So if you think you're going to open that Rolodex and that person's still going to be there 20 years ago, it's just that life has evolved. That's not the situation anymore. But LinkedIn is great, and you get an email when Jim has moved, and this is what he's doing now, and it's such an easy way to reach out to them. Post articles. Make yourself first of mind with your face. LinkedIn, I can't talk enough about it because it's a free service. I've been doing it for 13 years, and it's not a numbers game. You still really need to know these people. But what we all stumble and fall down on is staying in front of someone quarterly. Because you go to an event, you meet 5 people, you go to an event the next morning, you meet 5 more people. How are you going to come up with enough time in the day? You need to send articles, but I'm not having to send them one-on-one to you, to the next person.
You just post it once. Sure. Well, now you made me think of two particularly interesting thoughts. The thought number one, you said something that's about like you went up to see your face or something like that.
Right.
Now,
well, a face with a name is helpful for me, probably for a lot of people.
Now, what if you got a face like mine? That's more for radio. I mean,
we can work with it.
Okay. The other thing you said, Kim and I met at a Christmas business function about a month ago, and now I'm real nervous because I'm thinking there's these copious notes on everything I said and what I ate and what. No, I'm just teasing.
I don't really care too much what you eat.
Okay.
But I do. I just sat with a guy in December also. I hadn't seen him in 4 years. Shame on me.
Yeah.
But he'd been in a very different role. He'd been a CEO when I met him, and now he's back at a law firm practice. I reached out to him. Well, I remembered where his daughter worked. I remembered he had a son. I'm inquiring about his kids. They've all moved in their careers because it's been 4 years. But I was so glad of my notes that meeting started off so much smoother with those notes. So.
Sure. That's a terrific idea. And you know what?
And anyone can do that.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll share with you an interesting observation I have that kind of confirms what you do. I go to a lot of business events, and I take the cards, and I'd say I'm pretty diligent with the people who, I think are worthwhile connections.
I can attest to
that. She can attest to that, and I put them in my database, and I link in with them and all that. But, I got to tell you, it's just surprising how rare somebody contacts me.
Right.
And I think a lot of people feel like giving out their card is going to get something done. And it's really not. It's actually more important that you get their card and follow up with them, don't you think?
Yeah. The sales cycle is long, and it all depends on your different service. But particularly what I had been selling in the past, it it was a multi-year cycle. So I meet you. I'm going to have 6 touch points, significant ones. I need to bring you to a good event. I'm not talking about a buffet.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a once-in-a-lifetime experience type. These are CEOs of $100 million companies, if not billion-dollar companies, and you're competing against other things that they're doing in their lifestyle. And so, you have to have the right kind of events for them, and you need to, as I tell a lot of my clients, you need to scratch their back several times before you ever ask for a favor. So you typically won't hear out of me that I need anything from anyone yet. I'm going to do many favors to you first.
Okay.
And you will think very highly of me by the time I ask anything that I need from you.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up. I was going to ask you, would you mind going out and washing the windows in my car? Because they're kind of, that's a favor,
I'm a hard worker.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Nothing is below my
Let me ask you this another question, which kind of relates, because you've talked about sort of how to make that relationship kind of grow. Another thing I've observed is that these people who come from these disciplines tend to want to talk about what they do and not what the client is really looking for or needs. Is there some language or techniques you can suggest to help people have that kind of discussion?
Yes. I like this saying a lot. You cannot go in and have a prescription before a diagnosis. You would never go to a doctor that does that. So you shouldn't ever be talking about a product or a service without hearing what their problem is. And so you uncover that slowly. And people aren't forthright. And I'm going to tell you, the first time I've ever met you, all my things. It's also like an iceberg. And there's only this much they're going to show. And it's building a rapport with them so you can get under that surface and learn that vast amount that's under there. And that takes time. So you have to be genuine with it. But research can also be very helpful. So an example, going back to LinkedIn, is back in the business card day, you would have to sit down with someone possibly 6 times before you come up with, hey, I didn't know you know Joe. I went to college with him. Well, now you go into that meeting. I saw that we have 45 shared LinkedIn, and now the numbers are crazy. Literally, it's so often
they are
big double-digit numbers. But some of those you know to some degree, and then the other ones you say, oh, well, that's my neighbor, and that's my brother-in-law, and all these things. So,
yeah, and I think that is important. I could think of 2 examples. One, I had a client years ago when I was doing some coaching work for GM, and this guy he's not a real receptive client. Of course, he didn't hire me. I was kind of imposed on him, but he was a cross-country skier, and whenever I talk about skiing, well, he just open up and lighten up. And another former client of mine, this goes back about probably 6-7 years, I invited him out to take his kids and watch some car races, and so we did that. And I happened to reconnect with him a couple weeks ago, and he still remembers that,
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times it's if you can find out kind of what their interests are.
And nowadays it is easier to find that out. It used to be you walk into the office and you look around at the family pictures and you see if they have children and you see pictures from trips, things like that. But nowadays it shows their philanthropic interests, and that's also a huge passion of mine, and I encourage it to be of everyone's. It feels very good giving back, but you also look like a kinder person, and you meet great people along the way. The first board I joined 10 years ago, I remember going in there, and of course it was mostly men, 20 plus years senior to me, who were CEOs of companies, and they brought me in like I was part of the brotherhood. I started getting referrals within 2 months of being on that board because they cared that I had the same interest in this organization and that I was going to dedicate my time. And so it comes back to help you when you're helping.
All right, last subject before we conclude. I do some volunteer work for a place in Naperville called Community Career Center.
Okay.
And since I also do a little improv comedy, I created a workshop called Ace the Interview Through Storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And when people get it, it's just so much easier to talk in terms of stories and actual events. Would you sort of support that, and how can people think of some good stories to tell?
Yeah, and stories sometimes can be related to a client that has that similar situation. And I think those are the best. When someone's asking you to look at their business and an issue that they have, if you say, I've done this 2 different ways. You decide, this client, this was what they wanted, and this client, this was the outcome they were looking for. But those are storytelling examples that are how you help to, it's crafting that. It's not just coming in and we talked about and saying, here's all your choices, but painting a picture of it makes it much nicer.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, Kim, if somebody wanted to reach out to you for a consultation or whatever, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Email would be best right now because the website's getting up and running early this year. So it's kimstapleton1@gmail.
Okay. Is there a phone that they might try?
630-738-1890.
Okay. Thank you, Kim,
Thanks,
for
Jim.
being on our show. And if you need to talk to me, you can reach me at 630-272-3895. I'd encourage you to hear about the supplemental cancer insurance I offer. It can be really a lifesaver for families. So thank you very much, and until next time, take care. Beautiful.
Good.